Mysterious disappearance. Maura drove north alone. Then she disappeared on Route 112. No one found. February 9th, 2004. A cold night in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. A phone call is made to 911 reporting a single-car accident on Route 112. A black Saturn sedan has skidded off the road and crashed into a snowbank. The driver is unharmed, standing outside the vehicle. Within minutes, police arrive, but the driver is gone. Her name is Maura Murray. She was 21 years old, a nursing student, an honor roll athlete. And from that moment, no verified trace of her has ever been found. Earlier that day, Maura walked across the campus of the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Her steps were quick measured. She wore a jacket zipped tightly against the wind, her eyes distant. She glanced at her phone once, then tucked it away. Snowflakes hovered in the air, barely touching the ground. This would be the last known footage of her alive. Inside her dorm room, Maura typed a short email to her professors, stating she had a family emergency and would be away for a few days. It was a lie. No family emergency had occurred. She then packed a small bag. In it were some textbooks, her favorite stuffed monkey makeup, and toiletries. Not the belongings of someone fleeing permanently, but enough for a brief escape. She visited an ATM, withdrawing $280, almost all the money in her account. Surveillance footage showed her calm, composed. Then a stop at a nearby liquor store. She purchased Bailey's vodka and a box of Francia wine. Again, surveillance showed no signs of panic, no sign of anything out of the ordinary. She drove away in her black 1996 Saturn sedan, its engine in poor shape, bound north. But to where and for what reason, nobody knows. She didn't tell her friends. She didn't inform her family, and she didn't leave a note. As the afternoon faded, Maura drove deeper into the rural stretches of New Hampshire. Around 7:27 p.m., a resident named Faith Westman, whose house overlooked Route 112, heard a loud thump. Looking outside, she saw a black Saturn embedded in a snowbank. A young woman stood beside the car, appearing uninjured. Faith called 911 to report the accident. She told the dispatcher the driver looked young and wasn't bleeding or screaming. She didn't seem panicked. Tim Westman, Faith's husband, joined her at the window. Together they watched, confused by how calmly the woman stood beside the wrecked vehicle. Moments later, a school bus driver named Butch Atwood pulled over. He offered help. Maura declined. She told him 8AA was on the way. Butch thought it odd that she seemed cold, but not in distress. He returned home and called police himself. At 7:46 p.m., Officer Cecil Smith arrived. Less than 20 minutes had passed since the crash. The Saturn's front end was crumpled. Both airbags had deployed. A bottle of wine was broken in the back seat, staining the upholstery and the snow below. There was no blood, no broken glass outside the vehicle, and most disturbingly, no Maura. Her driver's door was locked. There were no footprints leading into the woods. Snow had recently fallen, tracks should have been visible. The officer and later search parties found none. No calls had been made from her phone. It was gone, along with her debit card and ID. In the coming hours, the search for Maura began in earnest. Police dogs tracked her scent for about 100 yards down the road. Then nothing. The trail ended abruptly in the middle of the street. The temperature dropped sharply that night. Snowfall resumed, covering any remaining evidence. A red stain in the snow turned out to be wine, not blood. Her belongings were still inside the car, books, clothes, and empty beer bottles. One Coke bottle smelled faintly of alcohol, as if it had been used to mix a drink. News of her disappearance reached her family the next day. Her father, Fred Murray, immediately drove to New Hampshire. In interviews, he described his daughter as intelligent and cautious. She was dealing with pressure, academic and personal, but nothing he believed that would drive her to vanish willingly. Fred began canvassing the area, putting up flyers, speaking to locals, and pressing the police for answers. But there were few. The town was small, the road isolated. No security cameras caught anything. No neighbors saw her walk away. and no one had picked up a young woman in that area at that time, or at least no one admitted it. What started as a minor car accident quickly turned into one of the most confounding missing persons cases in American history. The incident timeline was narrow. Between the time of the crash and the arrival of the police, barely 10 minutes had passed. In those 10 minutes, a young woman had vanished without a trace in a freezing rural wilderness. To this day, that moment remains the last time anyone can place Maura Murray in a confirmed location. The story was just beginning, but the evidence was already slipping away into the snow. And behind her disappearance, a storm of questions began to swirl, each one colder, sharper, and more elusive than the last. February the 6th, 2004. It's late evening, and Maura Murray is working at her security desk job in the UMass Amherst campus police office. The shift is quiet until a phone call comes in around 10:30 p.m. After answering, Maura is visibly disturbed. A supervisor notices she's nearly catatonic, shaking, unresponsive, barely able to speak. The only words she manages to utter, "My sister." She's escorted back to her dorm for the night. But later, her sister Julie confirms they didn't talk that evening. To this day, no one knows who was on that call or what was said. 2 days later, on Sunday, February 8th, Maura meets with her father, Fred Murray. He's driven up from Connecticut to help her look for a new car. Her Saturn is in poor shape. They spend the day visiting dealerships. That evening, Maura borrows Fred's brand new Toyota Corolla to return to campus. Around 2:30 a.m., she crashes it into a guardrail near her dorm. No injuries, but the accident causes thousands in damages. Campus police take a report. Fred is frustrated but not angry. They agree to file an insurance claim. Maura promises to collect the necessary forms the next day. She never does. On Monday morning, February 9th, Maura begins laying the groundwork for a sudden departure. She emails her professors, telling them there's a family emergency, that she'll be gone for a few days. No such emergency exists. She calls a condo rental service in Bartlett, New Hampshire, inquiring about availability. She doesn't make a reservation, but her interest is clear. She also searches MapQuest for directions to Burlington, Vermont, and prints several pages. At 3:15 p.m., Maura visits an ATM. She withdraws $280, almost her entire balance. Security footage shows her alone and calm. From there, she drives to a local liquor store. She purchases Bailey's vodka and a box of Franzia wine. Again, surveillance shows no signs of stress or urgency. Then she disappears into the New England winter. She packs lightly. In her Saturn are school books, makeup snacks, toiletries, and her favorite stuffed monkey. But also left behind are important personal effects, her birth control pills, nursing gear, and favorite jewelry. She tells no one where she's going. Not her friends, not her family, not her boyfriend. As the day unfolds, no one thinks to check in with her. At the time, her actions don't raise concern, but in hindsight, every step seems deliberate, like someone making quiet preparations for a trip they didn't plan to return from. The Saturn heads north on Interstate 91. Maura is alone. She doesn't stop for long. Sometime in the late afternoon, she crosses into New Hampshire. There's no record of her using a phone. Her last known digital footprint ends with a search for mountain getaways. Meanwhile, the accident from 2 days prior hangs over her. So does a recent disciplinary issue. She had been caught using a stolen credit card to order food. She was on probation. Her relationship with her boyfriend, a West Point cadet named Billy, was strained. Friends later described her as overwhelmed, distant, and secretive in the days leading up to her disappearance. And then, at 7:27 p.m., the crash on Route 112 occurs. Witnesses see her standing beside the car, calm and composed. Within minutes, she vanishes. Looking back, the events leading up to that night paint a picture of a young woman in turmoil. There was no single crisis, just a buildup of stress secrets and quiet despair. Yet her preparations suggest something more complicated than a breakdown. She was searching for escape, maybe even safety. But from what no one knows, in the years since investigators have combed through her digital and physical trail. Every clue raises more questions than it answers. The email to professors, the ATM withdrawal, the unbooked condo, the crash, and the silence that followed. Maura's dorm room remained untouched for days after. Her bed was made, books stacked neatly, and taped to the door a note, "Be back soon." She never came back, and no one, not her friends, not her family, not the hundreds of people who've searched for her since, knows why. February 9th, 2004, the quiet mountain road of Route 112 winds through the rural village of Haverhill, New Hampshire. Snowbanks tower along the shoulders. Just after 7:27 p.m., a resident named Faith Westman looks out her window and sees a black Saturn sedan off the road, its front end buried in snow. A young woman stands beside it, appearing uninjured. Faith picks up the phone and calls 911. The vehicle belongs to Maura Murray, 21 years old, a nursing student, an honor roll athlete, and now suddenly a missing person. Butch Atwood, a local school bus driver, is the next to pass the scene. He pulls up beside Maura and asks if she needs help. She declines, says she's already called Boyer, calm, not distressed. But that call never happened. No record exists of Maura contacting any roadside service. Butch drives on to his house a few hundred yards away and calls the police himself. Within 10 minutes, Officer Cecil Smith arrives. But Maura is gone. Her car is locked. The windshield cracked, airbags deployed. There's wine spilled inside the car and a box of Franzia in the back seat. No blood, no footprints leading away, no signs of a struggle. Her debit card, cell phone, and driver's license are gone too. The snow is fresh, untouched. Cecil Smith scans the scene. No sign of Maura, no one else around. He radios in for backup. The next morning, New Hampshire State Police launch a search. They bring in a scent-tracking dog. The dog picks up Maura's trail from the car and follows it east along Route 112 for about 100 yards. Then it stops. The implication is chilling. She may have gotten into another vehicle, voluntarily or by force. Over the next 48 hours, helicopters scan the tree line. Search teams comb the forest ditches and nearby homes. Volunteers from across the region join the effort, but nothing turns up. Not a piece of clothing, not a shoe print, nothing. Later that week, someone finds a red fleece jacket deep in the woods. At first there's hope, but it doesn't belong to Maura, a false lead. Neighbors offer inconsistent stories. One reports seeing strange headlights in the area around the time of the crash. Another says the car's interior light turned off suddenly before police arrived. Yet none of these observations bring the case any closer to resolution. There are no cameras on Route 112, no nearby businesses, no traffic. The road is isolated and it's cold, single-digit temperatures at night. It would be a difficult place to hide on foot, even harder to survive long without shelter. The absence of evidence leads to speculation. Had Maura planned to meet someone? Did she accept a ride from a stranger? Did she simply run into the woods in a panic, succumbing to the elements? Each theory only seems to deepen the mystery. At UMass, her friends begin to worry. She hasn't returned. No calls, no emails. Her dorm room remains just as she left it, neat, quiet, and untouched. Her textbooks still on the desk, her toothbrush in its holder. As the days turn to weeks, the official search effort is scaled back. But her family isn't ready to give up. Fred Murray, Maura's father, travels north again and again. He posts flyers, interviews, locals, retraces every step. He asks questions that go unanswered. What happened in the minutes between Butch Atwood's stop and the arrival of the first officer? Why did she disappear so completely? One theory emerges that Maura was picked up by someone traveling that road. Perhaps she flagged them down. Perhaps they stopped. There's no way to know. Others suspect she was hiding from something, maybe even someone she knew. The circumstances only invite more speculation. The calm demeanor, the lack of distress, the precise series of actions leading up to the crash. Some believe it was all staged to cover for a planned disappearance, but no one saw her leave, no one saw another car, and no one knows why a capable, intelligent young woman would vanish without a trace, without a message, and without a plan. The case remains open. But Maura's trail, like the road, she vanished on ends in silence. February 9th, 2004. The quiet mountain road of Route 112 winds through the rural village of Haverhill, New Hampshire. Snowbanks tower along the shoulders. Just after 7:27 p.m., a resident named Faith Westman looks out her window and sees a black Saturn sedan off the road, its front end buried in snow. A young woman stands beside it, appearing uninjured. Faith picks up the phone and calls 911. The vehicle belongs to Maura Murray, 21 years old, a nursing student, an honor roll athlete, and now suddenly a missing person. Butch Atwood, a local school bus driver, is the next to pass the scene. He pulls up beside Maura and asks if she needs help. She declines, says she's already called AAA, calm, not distressed. But that call never happened. No record exists of Maura contacting any roadside service. Butch drives on to his house a few hundred yards away and calls the police himself. Within 10 minutes, Officer Cecil Smith arrives, but Maura is gone. Her car is locked. The windshield, cracked airbags deployed. There's wine spilled inside the car and a box of Francia in the back seat. No blood, no footprints leading away, no signs of a struggle. Her debit card, cell phone, and driver's license are gone too. The snow is fresh, untouched. Cecil Smith scans the scene. No sign of Maura, no one else around. He radios in for backup. The next morning, New Hampshire State Police launch a search. They bring in a scent tracking dog. The dog picks up Maura's trail from the car and follows it east along Route 112 for about 100 yards. Then it stops. The implication is chilling. She may have gotten into another vehicle, voluntarily or by force. Over the next 48 hours, helicopters scan the tree line. Search teams comb the forest ditches and nearby homes. Volunteers from across the region join the effort. But nothing turns up. Not a piece of clothing, not a shoe print, nothing. Later that week, someone finds a red fleece jacket deep in the woods. At first there's hope, but it doesn't belong to Maura, a false lead. Neighbors offer inconsistent stories. One reports seeing strange headlights in the area around the time of the crash. Another says the car's interior light turned off suddenly before police arrived. Yet none of these observations bring the case any closer to resolution. There are no cameras on Route 112, no nearby businesses, no traffic. The road is isolated and it's cold. Single-digit temperatures at night. It would be a difficult place to hide on foot. Even harder to survive, long without shelter. The absence of evidence leads to speculation. Had Maura planned to meet someone? Did she accept a ride from a stranger? Did she simply run into the woods in a panic, succumbing to the elements? Each theory only seems to deepen the mystery. At UMass, her friends begin to worry. She hasn't returned, no calls, no emails. Her dorm room remains just as she left it, neat, quiet, and untouched. Her textbook still on the desk, her toothbrush in its holder. As the days turn to weeks, the official search effort is scaled back. But her family isn't ready to give up. Fred Murray, Maura's father, travels north again and again. He posts flyers, interviews, locals, retraces every step. He asks questions that go unanswered. What happened in the minutes between Butch Atwood's stop and the arrival of the first officer? Why did she disappear so completely? One theory emerges that Maura was picked up by someone traveling that road. Perhaps she flagged them down. Perhaps they stopped. There's no way to know. Others suspect she was hiding from something, maybe even someone she knew. The circumstances only invite more speculation. The calm demeanor, the lack of distress, the precise series of actions leading up to the crash. Some believe it was all staged a cover for a planned disappearance, but no one saw her leave, no one saw another car, and no one knows why a capable, intelligent young woman would vanish without a trace, without a message, and without a plan. The case remains open, but Maura's trail, like the road she vanished on, ends in silence. The theories begin to branch out into even murkier territory. People wonder if Maura had run into someone with ill intentions, someone who was familiar with the remote stretch of Route 112. It wouldn't take long to drive off that road, to disappear into the woods, or to head to another nearby town before authorities even began their search. Then came the theories of foul play involving strangers or someone Maura may have arranged to meet. Did she know someone along the way? Did she confide in anyone about her destination? If she did, no one has come forward. The lack of confirmed communication with anyone fuels further doubt. Some theorists suggest a darker narrative that Maura had encountered someone who manipulated or coerced her. Given her vulnerable state, possibly intoxicated, recently distressed, it wouldn't take much for someone to take advantage of the moment. Could a predator have been watching the stretch of road, waiting for an opportunity? The idea of a staged disappearance lingers. Her search history, the calm withdrawal of cash, the collection of alcohol, these seem deliberate. But her crash doesn't. Witnesses described a quick, sudden loss of control, not a calculated stop. The car's damage, the airbag deployment, the cracked windshield, these aren't part of a typical planned disappearance. Yet nothing in Maura's life suggested an imminent breakdown. Her family describes her as responsible, intelligent, and goal-oriented, but they also acknowledge she was under pressure. Her recent car crash, academic stress, strained romantic relationship, and minor legal troubles created a cocktail of tension. She may have simply needed to escape for a while. If Maura had intended to come back, something or someone may have intervened before she could. The 10 minutes between Butch Atwood's conversation with her and the arrival of the police is a black hole. In time, an unrecorded moment that remains central to the entire investigation. And in that gap, Maura vanished. Law enforcement has explored all possibilities, but with no forensic evidence, no eyewitnesses to her departure, and no digital trail, the case stalled. Investigators later revealed they found no calls, messages, or emails after her last known communication with professors. Nothing to suggest she reached out to anyone for help or for company. The community in Haverhill, small and tight-knit, was left shaken. People questioned if someone local was involved, if a trucker or a passing motorist stopped and took her. Yet no reliable leads ever surfaced. No suspicious activity reported that night. Nothing concrete. The investigation turned to Fred Murray's persistence. He hired private detectives, tracked every rumor, every whisper. But years passed. Search parties dwindled. Seasons changed. Still no answers. And the road remained quiet. February 16, 2004. A week has passed since Maura Murray vanished from Route 112. Snow continues to fall in patches over Haverhill, New Hampshire. The air is colder, the silence heavier. The buzz of initial search efforts has faded, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. For those closest to Maura, especially her father Fred, the disappearance is not just a mystery, it is a relentless void. Fred Murray drives up again from Massachusetts. He parks near the crash site and walks the snow-covered roadside. With each trip, he hopes for a sign, a dropped earring, a piece of fabric, anything that might prove Maura had been there or gone somewhere. But there's nothing. He begins to knock on doors. Most are friendly but unhelpful. A few are guarded. One house draws his attention more than the others. It sits within view of the crash site, a dilapidated structure with boarded-up windows. Rumors have spread online, unconfirmed, speculative. Some say they saw suspicious lights near the home the night Maura disappeared. Others whisper about a local man with a history of strange behavior. But when Fred asks to search the property, the homeowner refuses. No explanation. Private investigators later bring in cadaver dogs. One dog alerts to an area in the basement, It's enough to raise eyebrows, but not enough for a search warrant. By then, years have passed. The house is sold. The opportunity, if there ever was one, is lost. Back in Amherst, Maura's dorm room remains untouched. Her belongings are boxed and stored. But one memory lingers: the call she received on the night of February 5th, just days before she left. A call that reduced her to tears and forced her to leave her post at the campus security desk. To this day, the identity of the caller remains unknown. Her supervisor remembers Maura appearing deeply shaken, almost in shock. Maura later told friends it had to do with her sister, but Julie Murray, her sister, denies any call took place between them that night. So who was on the other end of the line? And what could they have said to cause that reaction? Another mystery arises. 1 week after the crash, a call is placed to a dorm mate of Maura's. The voice on the line is male, calm and chilling. "You'll never find her. Stop looking." The call is traced, but no identity is confirmed. It came from a phone booth. The timing is too specific to ignore. Whether it was a cruel hoax or something more sinister is still unknown. Locals in Haverhill begin to report sightings of a black SUV in the area both before and after the crash. The SUV has no plates-tinted windows. One resident remembers seeing it circling the area days before Maura's disappearance. Another claims it was parked on a back road around the same time. But when police investigate, there's no trace, no cameras, no leads. In the absence of facts, theories flourish. Internet forums light up with speculation. True crime bloggers dissect every decision, every known movement Maura made. Theories range from rational to absurd: abduction, by a local escape to Canada, even entry into a witness protection program. None are proven, but the interest sustains. The case becomes a mainstay in the online true crime community. Fred continues his personal investigation. He appears on television, in documentaries, and on podcasts. His pain is evident, but so is his drive. He pressures law enforcement. He contacts the media. He does everything he can to keep Maura's name in the public consciousness. Years pass. Investigators shift. The original officers on the case move on or retire, but the file remains open, categorized as a missing person case. There is no evidence of a crime, but also no evidence of voluntary disappearance. It's as if Maura stepped off the map. Later, new investigators return to the crash site and its surrounding area. They perform aerial scans, ground searches, and re-interview witnesses. Nothing new emerges. They acknowledge the case's complexity. The location, the lack of witnesses, the window of time, all of it worked against the search. Despite the lack of resolution, the story continues to haunt those who follow it. It's the sheer normalcy of Maura's day juxtaposed with the finality of her vanishing that strikes a nerve. She was young, intelligent, and seemed to be coping. Her disappearance remains one of the most enduring modern mysteries in the United States. Today, nearly every detail of Maura Murray's case has been dissected, debated, and documented. But no one can say with certainty what happened after 7:27 p.m. on that cold February night. And until that certainty comes, the shadow of that road remains stretching longer with each passing year. February turns to March. Snow still coats the back roads of Haverhill. But the days are longer now, and the trees sway with hints of an approaching thaw. There are no more search teams, no helicopters, no dogs. Only the wind and the ache of absence. Fred Murray continues his trips north. Sometimes he walks alone, retracing Maura's last known steps. Other times he stands still, simply looking at the place where her car once sat. He talks to locals, hoping memory may sharpen with time. A clerk at a nearby gas station says she saw a young woman matching Maura's description the day after the crash, disoriented, asking for directions. But the surveillance footage is long gone. The tip remains unconfirmed. Online, Maura's story grows. Podcasts dissect her case in detail. Reddit threads stretch thousands of comments deep. Documentaries feature interviews, theories, dramatizations. People argue over maps, phone records, timelines. For many, Maura becomes more than a missing person, she becomes a symbol, a ghost haunting the digital age. Julie Murray, Maura's sister, steps into the spotlight. She speaks at conferences, urges authorities to keep the case active. She answers emails from strangers who claim to have seen Maura, or dreamt about her, or somehow feel connected. Julie knows most leads go nowhere, but she checks anyway. The FBI quietly reviews the case. Their interest, though less publicized, never wanes. In 2021, a set of bones is discovered in a nearby wooded area. For weeks, speculation swells. The bones are tested. They do not belong to Maura. Psychologists weigh in, each offering different profiles. Some believe Maura planned a short break and fell victim to chance. Others argue she was emotionally overwhelmed and something irreversible happened that night. Still others suggest a random act abduction or foul play by a stranger who saw an opportunity. Each theory is both compelling and insufficient. Fred grows older. The crash site doesn't change. Neither does the hurt. Every February he returns to that same stretch of Route 1112, places a flower, says nothing. The case remains open in the state of New Hampshire. Officials describe it as active, though leads have long dried up. They invite the public to share tips, but admit there's little new to pursue. Technology has advanced, but the absence of physical evidence makes digital tools powerless. Journalists continue to call the case one of America's most haunting disappearances. Its hallmarks, a gifted young woman, mysterious behavior, sudden vanishing, are the ingredients of modern myth. But for those who loved Maura, the myth is irrelevant. They only want the truth, and truth for now refuses to show its face. In the years since, theories have morphed. Some believe Maura was taken and is still alive, somewhere living under a new name. Others hold she met a tragic end that night, buried beneath snow trees and time. The longer the mystery persists, the more distorted the outlines become. What's left are fragments: a dorm room half-packed, an abandoned car, an email about a family emergency that never happened, an unanswered call, a Coke bottle with a scent of alcohol, a red stain in the snow, and silence. A silence louder than any clue. If Maura is still out there, she's one of the most famous missing persons of the 21st century. If not, then she lies somewhere hidden in a place only one person may know. The road she vanished from is still open. The cold still bites. And every so often someone drives past and wonders what happened to Maura Murray. The story doesn't end. It simply waits.